Hello booktube, it's Marilyn Maya and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing something a little different. I'm doing a discussion video about classics. What is a classic anyway? And I'm also doing a haul of some classics that were sent to me. I got this idea from a loving subscriber who sent me, thank you, a whole bunch of classic books, most of which I haven't read. And I thought to myself, what is a classic anyway? Now that might be kind of, I was a teacher after all, but I didn't teach classics. I taught English as a foreign language. And when I went to high school in the 60s, what we thought of as classics, you know, we thought, oh, boring, long, heavy, in all sense of the words, a tome. So I wanted to see really what a classic was, because I want to know if I'm going to read any or all of these books. Let me just say that I have read some of these books. And I hope to read more, because ever since I've been on BookTube and see what other booktubers have talked about in their reading of classics, I got interested and I wanted to know more. And I did read some classics. Though I got these ideas from thoughtco.com, I sort of made it my own. And the first thing that makes a classic is timely and timeless. So what's the difference between the two? Now, timely means we can make a connection to our lives today, and that it's still relevant. And timeless means that it will continue to be like that in the future. So that's one of the things that makes a classic. People don't change in vast ways. So we still want the same things. We still want families or not. We still believe in God or we don't. We still have wars. We still have peace. So all of these things make them timeless. A classic does. And I'm not talking about the modern classics now. I'm talking about classics from the beginning of time, though I'm not going to talk about that. The next thing that makes a classic is artistic quality. Now, you might say, well, in whose judgment? And then we go back to, you know, it's timeless. So people, you know, from now until forever might think that these are good books or not. You know, some of the books that are popular now weren't bestsellers in their day, but they stood the test of time. And we recognize that these authors were way ahead of their time, or were explaining something that was not really talked about in that day. The other thing that's sort of tied in is it has universal appeal. You know, I could say nothing has universal appeal, but no. For example, the Bible does. Even if you don't believe in God, or you might say that the Bible has universal appeal because people can see the writing in the Bible, and the stories in the Bible were told in such a way that makes them, even people who don't believe in it, they want to read it just for the literature aspect of it. So I think that other books, of course, beside the Bible, have that universal appeal, that people from from many countries, from many time periods, think this is a good book. And that goes into it's relevant to multiple generations, because we see books that are written. In fact, the first book I'm going to talk about is a book that was written, you know, the Canterbury Tales, and that was written a long time ago. So that's what I think a classic book is. You know, so what do you think a classic book is? Now I'm going to get into the haul and see if all of these meet those qualifications. And like I said, I was very happy to receive a whole, even more than the books I'm going to talk about, from a subscriber. And I was so happy to receive them because they're in a beautiful Oxford World's Classic edition, which makes them more appealing than the books, some of the books I had in like really bad editions, you know, not all, and not good condition as well. So this was a real treat for me. So thank you, my subscriber. I really appreciate it. So let's talk about the books now. So now we're getting more into the whole part of it. These I call the tomes because they all are pretty hefty. And I'm going to start with the Canterbury Tales. And it says this is a good translation, is the best we ever had, someone said. And the Canterbury Tales was written by Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer. I've read a few of them, but not all, this whole book like it is. So this is written in Middle English, which really gets people off of reading this. And I was one of those people. It's a collection of 24 stories that runs to over 17,000 lines written in Middle English by Geoffrey Chaucer between 1387 and 1400. It is widely regarded as Chaucer's magnum opus, his greatest work. And yeah, so imagine some tales written in 1387 to 1400 that's still relevant today. So have you read this? I'm not saying I'm going to read it from beginning to end, but I'm going to dip into it for sure. The next book I want to talk about really made me want to read it by watching. I've watched so many people read this in the last year, and they say it's great. And that is the great, how many pages does this one have? 11, well, with all of the indexes and epilogues, explanatory notes, it's over 1,100 pages. And that's Alexandre Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo. And I've watched many videos this year of people who say that this was a wonderful book. So what is it about? It's a swashbuckling type of book that Alexandre Dumas was one to write. He wrote them. And the story takes place in France, Italy, and islands in the Mediterranean during the historical during the historical events of 1850 to 1839, the era of the Bourbon Restoration through the reign of Louis Philippe of France. It begins on the day that Napoleon left his first island of exile, Elba, beginning the 100-day period when Napoleon returned to power. The historical setting is a fundamental element of the book, an adventure story, centrally concerned with themes of hope, justice, vengeance, mercy, and forgiveness. Centers on a man who is wrongfully imprisoned. I don't want to go into it because most people know the gist of this book, and so did I. But what I didn't know is how exciting people say that this book is. So maybe next March of the Mammoths, or maybe I'll dip into it during the year. The next book is another book I've heard of. I've seen parts of a movie, and that's also by Alexandre Dumas, and that's The Three Musketeers. And this I thought I would never want to read until I watched some of my favorite booktubers talk about how wonderful this book is. And it's in the swashbuckler genre, which has heroic swordsmen who fight for justice. And now the Musketeers, what I'm thinking, what I was reading about it, was a group of people who fought for justice, but it was hard to get in. And then the third, so this guy meets the two people that were going to become his best friends, and then they work together to fight for justice. And I'm sure there's a lot of adventure in it, but a lot of meaning that might have meaning for us right now. with social justice and fighting for what's right. So yeah, I think I'm more likely to get into this than even the Count of Monte Cristo. So the next one, oh boy, the next one. The Karamazov Brothers by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I love this cover. It really gives an idea of what the book is about and makes me interested in it, even though it's a tome for sure, over 900 pages. Yeah, I'm afraid of tomes, I have to be honest. So what is it about? It's set in 19th century Russia. The brothers Karamazov is a passionate philosophical novel that enters deeply into questions of God, free will, and morality. It's a theological drama dealing with problems of faith, doubt, and reason in the context of modernizing Russia, with a plot that revolves around the subject of patricide, of someone killing their father. So I think that I heard this is funny, which made me think, how could this be funny? But yeah, I haven't read many Russian novels, so, and this is such a beautiful edition. So yeah, if you've read this book, let me know in the comments. I really want to know. And the last one is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Do I really need to tell you much more? I know people have loved this book. People have put down this book. People have suffered through this book. Yeah, so it's an epic historical literary classic. So I think all of these can be called literary classics, but this one, if somebody says, what's the literary classic that comes to mind, you're going to say War and Peace, right? And it chronicles the French invasion of Russia and the impact of the Napoleonic era of Tsarist society through the stories of 5 Russian aristocratic families. So what this is, and what people like and dislike about it, is that it's a family epic drama. So there's some parts of it, they go into different families, I'm told, and some of the things that they talk about are not interesting to some people. But then also this book is about war and peace. And I'm not really interested in reading about war, even war that happened so long ago. I know that we need to understand war so it doesn't happen again, but does it really ever stop? But yeah, this is the least likely I'm going to read, but you never know. And it's, like I said, it's also an Oxford World Classic. The next 5 books I have read, some of them, albeit 30 years ago, and some of them quite recently for Jane Austen July. So I've been on BookTube almost 3 years, and I think I've reread most of these. I liked some of them better than others, but when I got this package from my subscriber, these were in it, and they're beautiful Oxford World Classics. I'm just going to, go over them really quickly because most of you have heard of them, and you know why that they're classic books. I heard about Jane Austen in my 30s when I was going through a depression, and I read in an article that Jane Austen was very good for relief from depression. And I was very curious because I had really never heard of Jane Austen before. We didn't study her in my high school in the 60s. So I got into those, and I really agreed because they took me out of my world, and I was in Jane Austen's world. And the first book that I'm going to talk about very briefly is Northanger Abbey. And this one also has Lady Susan, the Watsons, and Sandishan, which I have not read. But I did read Northanger Abbey. And basically, it's about the misadventures of Catherine Morland, young, ingenuous, meddlesome, and an indefatigable reader of Gothic novels. I liked the first half of this book better than the second half, but still, it was kind of delightful, as all of Jane Austen's books are to me. The next book has a reputation of you love it or you don't love it, and that's Mansfield Park, and I loved it. This is one of my favorite. It's about Fanny Price, who at the age of 10 leaves the poverty of her Portsmouth home to be brought up among the family of her wealthy uncle, Sir Thomas Bertram, in the chilly grandeur of Mansfield Park. But it's so much more than that. A lot of people don't like Fanny Price. I did. You know, she's a different kind of heroine, but I liked her morals and I liked her strength when she needed to be strong. And I liked her story. You know, it's not as romantic as the other books, but I still liked it. And it's long, and it had a lot to love in it, in my opinion. And of course, Pride and Prejudice, about the 5 Bennet sisters. Do I have to even talk about it? I would say it's my second favorite of the Jane Austen books. And it's one of the most famous love stories of all times. Now that's timeless. Love story is always timeless, I think, and makes it a classic when it's written well. And has proven itself as a treasured mainstay of the English literary canon. I always think, when I think of the English literary canon, people talk about that a lot on booktube, and there's certain books that are in and certain books that aren't in. But I believe that Pride and Prejudice should have all of the glory that it gets, because it's a wonderful book. And I think it's likable to both men and women. With the arrival of eligible young men in the neighborhood, the lives of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet and their 5 daughters are turned inside out and upside down. Pride encounters prejudice. That's all I'm going to say. But it's also funny and well written, and just a delight to read. That's all I'll say about that. My favorite book of the Jane Austen collection is Persuasion. I think I like it the best because it's the most mature book. It's about Anne Elliot, and she had to give up her present happiness and resigned herself to living off her memories. And 7 years later, she meets the man that she was persuaded not to marry. And it goes on from there. And I really loved Anne Elliot, and I loved the story. Sort of like it tells you not to listen to people all the time and to trust yourself. And that's the beauty of this novel. And the last one is one I haven't read in over. In fact, the one that I don't have is Sense and Sensibility, and I was going to read that this coming July. But this is Emma, and I haven't read this for a long time. Though I did see, a lot of adaptations. Clueless is one of the adaptations. So it's about Emma Woodhouse. To speculate, the friends and neighbors of Emma Woodhouse, the lively, willful, and fallible heroine of Jane Austen's 4th published novel, confident that she knows best, she schemes to find a suitable husband for her pliant friend Harriet, only to discover that she understands the feelings of others as little as she does her own heart. And the one I don't have is Sense and Sensibility, so I won't talk about that in this video. So, have you read any of these classic literary novels? And what do you think makes a novel a classic? Is it anything that I've talked about, or something else that I might have overlooked? Please tell me below in the comments. And please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in my next video. So until then, aloha oi.